Welcome to another episode of Corporate CPR, where we breathe life back into your organization, projects, and processes, giving you insights to recovery and avoiding corporate mortality events. I'm your host, Jana Axline. Joining me today is Rich Trigger Bontrager, who has cheated death at least 3 times. He has defied the odds medically at birth, survived a severe fire accident at age 10, and more recently received a life-saving liver transplant. Trigger, as he's commonly known, had a horrible stutter as a child, but has enjoyed a 30-year career as a sports broadcaster, talk show host, and keynote speaker. Rich is the creator and host of How to Rock the Virtual Stage, airing on C-Suite TV and Roku TV. Rich is also the head of podcast and TV content with C-Suite Network. Rich is an expert on virtual stage presentations and coaches top professionals on broadcast and stage skills to help them have a more significant impact on today's virtual programs. Let's welcome Trigger. So Rich, one of the things that really intrigues me about the work you do, helping people have a presence and being out there in front of audiences now needs to seem to translate more into our corporate environments, because we are now relying more and more on virtual meetings, video conferences because of COVID. But I think there's going to be an element that's here to stay as companies become more comfortable with remote work and they're more enabled to do that. So what is it that people and leaders really need to understand about this in order to stay effective in running their meetings virtually?
So really the first thing, Jana, is you have to adjust your mental capacity. Because it's not just another meeting. It's not like you just rolled up and sat down with the people on the couch anymore. You are now a broadcaster. I actually went to broadcast school. I've got 30 years of broadcast experience. I know what a microphone, with lighting, staging. I know how to do the energy, where to put my hands on camera, where not to put them on camera. All these things now play into how you run your businesses and companies. How do you best communicate to your people? For example, how long does a meeting go before they check out? How engaging should you be during your meetings before they check out? How do you keep people engaged when they're across the country, across the world? And so many things now when it comes to being media minded. So you're not just running a business anymore. You're learning to become a media minded company that now has to leverage and use this to your full advantage.
How important do you think it is for those presentation skills, though, for a leader to get their message across? And let me give you an example. I was sitting on a client's corporate-wide event and listening to the person speaking, and the head of the company is an CFO. And it really felt like that person was reading their quarterly earnings report. And then what I noticed, though, is it then seemed to set the tone for everyone else who was then on reporting out on that call. So what are your thoughts about that? And what advice would you give that person?
Those are the people I coach, Jana. So I know them very well, and you're describing it very well. They come off stiff. There's something about the green light going on, first of all. People freeze. I have talked to people off camera, prepared them, got them relaxed, they're laughing. That green light goes on. It's like, hi, my name's Ted. I'm glad you're here. And it just sucks the life out of it. Like you said, it's like reading the quarterly reports or a phone book. So you have to learn personality. You have to learn presentation. You have to learn eyes to the camera. You have to fall in love with the camera and then not worry about the camera. You don't even think about the camera. Right. As long as I've been doing this, it doesn't exist anymore. But you have to play to it, talk to it, laugh to it, smile to it. So there's a whole different thing that CEOs, executives, they're used to being in a boardroom, looking around the room, and they can read the room a little bit. Now you have everyone up front and personal, and you can see when they grab their cell phone. You can see when their kid walks into the frame, and they don't know what to do on camera right now. So it's a big hurdle, but if you stay centered here and stay in camera and frame and present like you're on stage with high energy, high focus, it'll go much better for you.
And so what about, I guess the one other thing that I also have noticed in this time, though, is video fatigue. I mean, there comes a time where I'm like, this meeting's not that critical. I'm not turning my video on. What are the, where do we give ourselves permission to do that? But then what do we have to evaluate, weigh that against, I guess you could say?
So that goes back to the leader, I think. The leader sets the culture for their business. In this new modern age, I think leaders have to almost demand, ask, require, incentivize cameras on. You're showing up for work. It's important. I want you all locked in. I want you to share. I want microphones on so we can crosstalk. We can laugh. We can crack jokes like we used to. So you keep the relationship going really, really high because this is still high touch. Now, the other part of that is going to be how long. I've gone to a format of, think of it as like TV episodes. A 2-hour board meeting will not do anyone any good, and it never did to begin with. Most people checked out anyways. The CEOs just didn't believe it. So now you have to think about episodes. How can you do part of what you want to do and then say, hey, you know what? That's an hour. And I really suggest no more than an hour. Let's come on back, picking it up on 2 days from now and part 2. So you give them something with an action, with something that requires something of them, not just a ongoing ramble with, again, your monthly report, your weekly report. Give them a task, give them an action, also have engagement, and then say, we're coming back for part 2 and get ready for it. You keep them excited. They don't get the fatigue. And it also gives them a mission to go back out and do something so they'll report on it next time.
Sounds like you're even suggesting then that we incorporate, a lot of, I guess, the techniques that folks in the organizational design do around their training programs and things like that, where they're creating moments of engagement. It sounds like you're saying that we should be bringing those into all types of meetings.
All type of meetings should be engaging. We now have a whole generation that is tactile. One of the tricks I tell people is, especially if you're doing a group, because of the hybrid model or guest speakers now, I also encourage guest speakers to send and ship a tactile box. This is like the party box, and you send it to the CEO who's ever running the meeting in person with their little hub of people. And during it, you'll actually say, hey, Ted, that was a great idea. Jen, that was a great idea. Ted, reach in the box, give Jenna the Rubber Ducky Award today. And you reach in the box and you actually get a rubber ducky. Now, I'm hundreds of miles away, but we just bonded. And it keeps them engaged. It now has a stupid award that sits on Jana's desk forever. And never remember, Jana had that great, cool idea with the rubber ducky. So you have to raise the engagement. It can't just be, I'm going to talk to you. It's not a monologue. It's an engagement, but that's where you have to learn how to coach it, present it, and turn it into a highly engaging event.
So let's take this down a level, right? We've been talking a lot at the leadership, but let's take it down to those, and to what Project Genetics does. We have boring project calls where we have to talk about, is this on track? How are we doing? What risks do we have? What do we not foresee? So what do we do to shake that up and make sure that, and I want to say one of the problems, a significant risk to projects is that people on those calls aren't paying attention. And so then key critical things may not come out. Somebody might be like, oh, well, I knew that was an issue a week ago. Even though it was brought up on a call, they didn't comment on it because they weren't actually listening. So how do you bring that engagement without, on some sort of weekly routine call that you're trying to get through, certain information?
So on a weekly routine call like that, I would share the leadership role. Don't ever see it to be the same person. Bob, Susie, Steve, you're all going to take turns. So it keeps them prepared. They all have to be in the game because it could be their week coming on up. The other thing is you want to have some sort of connectivity, an icebreaker. It can be silly. It can be stupid. What everyone do over the weekend? What was your last vacation? We often do trivia sometimes with the folks that I actually work with, and we'll actually ask the most lamest, stupidest question. But it's fun to see what their answers are. The other thing is, every so often, throw a party. Okay, for the first 15 minutes, I want to see everyone with your favorite Zoom background of your favorite cartoon character, or change your name to Daffy Duck and Bugs Bunny or whatever else you like, and you might get a SpongeBob thrown in. And it says something about the personality of the people you work with now. So no, it's no longer just a meeting. It's now you're engaging and connecting on a deeper level outside of the office but you're inside the virtual office. There's a lot of ways to do this, but you do have to realize the human connection is still craved. So you have to find a way to connect before you go in the business.
I guess I want to reinforce that. And I had forgotten about this memory, but last year on a project that I was leading, we had to meet with the executives on a daily basis. And it was a large organization, and these are very professional executives, because the project had gone live before I had joined, and then it was failing. So I was there to help recover it, right? Like that it was in production. There were all these issues. I'm there to help recover it. And somehow, and this is right when COVID hit too, right? And so now half the organization's in lockdown. So it's a really stressful time in general. And somehow we got onto this, and maybe it was because I got my first dog as an adult. But everybody would send me pictures, and we would share on a daily basis the picture of a team member's pet, and they would start off the meeting talking about this pet. And it was really interesting, because it was really interesting to see a CHRO or a CIO or somebody just glowing over their pet while discussing these problems on a project.
It can be even. We do weekly calls within the C-suite network that I'm a part of, and we actually do. Let's do some takeaways or some attaboys. So that builds team connectivity. All of a sudden, I'll be saying, "Hey, Jana kicked it on this new project. Well, you cannot believe what she did with our sub-team this week. She had this amazing idea. Thanks, Jana, for leveling us up." Everyone in the room they heard the attaboy. You've got a little bump up, and everyone's also excited about who's going to have the next one, because no one wants to be left out of the group. Right. So now everyone is paying attention to my name going to get called.
I used to do it with email. When I wanted people, I would send out this daily email. I ran out of material, but I would send out a daily email recapping all the important things that were happening that day on a project. And hidden in it would be a funny YouTube video, so that you had to read the email to go find the YouTube video. But then I ran out of work appropriate YouTube videos. So, but it lasted a long time, and it was a lot of fun. And it was fun for me to be, even trying to put myself in their shoes of, will the team think this is funny?
Well, and keeping fun alive is so important, because how many of us did do the water cooler conversation? How many of us did have the Monday football betting boards? How many of us did talk about, hey, we're going to this place tonight to go, who wants to join us? So the fun and the laughter has always been in the office. Now, virtually, we have to figure out some way to bring this in there as well and still accomplish the goals.
Absolutely. And that's always, I think that's a challenge sometimes for us project managers, in the sense that we're obviously trained that the meeting starts, it stays on time, it stays on the agenda, because, that's what we're about, right? Time management and meeting cohesion, making sure that we're obtaining the objectives. But that was in a time where you could talk before the meeting, you could talk after the meeting, you could drop by somebody's desk. So it definitely changes the dynamic, and we probably need to set a standard around the culture. So it's not appropriate to be late. You still have to be on time, but the first 5 minutes are going to be connecting with each other.
Yeah, I mean, have some sort of connectivity, just kind of fun, light, easy, but you do want to run these like a show now, because of that very fact. You don't want to go an hour, 2 hours. You want to say, I'm going to get you in, get you out. It's going to be worth your time. So for my radio days, I ran a clock that I knew the news was at 10 after, the weather was at this after, and you had different elements that you knew we were going to bring in. For your meetings like this, you have to think of that clock now. How long do you want to do the mixer? How long do you want to do hard work? How long do you want to do brainstorming or breakout groups? Again, this is another great way. Instead of just having everyone in one room, hey, you guys go to a breakout room. You guys go to a breakout room. Do some real noodling on this. We'll come on back, and we'll share what everyone else got out of it. Well, now you have team dynamics. Now you have interaction on a personal level, and you have someone who gets to come back and champion. My room is doing this. See, but that's your pre-planning now has changed. You're not just running a meeting; you're running an event.
So let's talk a little bit about personal. I guess I don't know how to say it, maybe personal brand or something like that. Where. So I identify as a millennial. I think I'm 1 year off, but I identify as a millennial. And, I've never had to show up to work in a suit every day. And, and I've kind of gotten to the point where I'm like, you're not getting anything more than jeans from me. Jeans and a nice shirt, but jeans.
Yeah.
And so where I'm headed with this
right
is
now
that
it's shorts and a nice shirt. Come on, let's be real about this. Right now it's shorts and a nice shirt.
But then we get on video now, and I've even seen, not even just my generation, but even older generations becoming more and more casual.
Yeah.
Right. Last week, I actually wore a sweatshirt on a work call because I knew half the people on the call would be as well. So what are your thoughts about that? Are we shifting, or is that a problem? Like, what does clothes and all of that have to do with meeting success?
So that's a really good question, Jen. I mean, I do have some real hard ones on that one. The culture is so important. Your brand, your marketing confidence hinges on this now. Now, excuse me, I'm within the C-suite space. There is an executive style and executive look that you do have within that space. But for team internally, we're still doing the collared shirts, but I don't have my jacket on for team. Most of the time we are wearing shorts because it's only the top that matters now. Shh, don't tell anybody.
Right.
But with that, then when I do external calls, when I do interviews, when I'm on client consultations, a lot of times I will throw on a jacket or at least put on a really good shirt because they are expecting C-level expert, C-level content. And if I have my hoodie on with a basement pipe over my head and my dog climbing over me, that's not C-level. There's still a mental aspect to you are presenting, you are selling. So your brand, as you put it, is very important. I always ask leaders, what's your brand? Protect your brand. I was working with a sales team that very high level, international. Their top team had me come on in and work with their top tier leaders. And after I did my presentation, they did breakout rooms. They came out back, and one gentleman, and I'd been told this in advance, he had never turned on his camera. He had never really participated. He hated virtual backdrops. Everything I hit, he hated. He was one of the first person to talk after my presentation, after the breakout. He came on with camera on, wearing his hoodie in his basement. And he said, I'm buying a green screen. I'm putting the company green screen brand logo behind me. I'm getting back dressed for work because you killed me on the fact consumer confidence is dropping because I look like a schmuck. It affects your sales, your marketing, your attitude. It affects so much because, again, this is now stage. This is now theater. So it is kind of a costume. And I'm okay with telling people this. This is a mental exercise now. You have to dress up and you have to play the part. Even though you have the letters behind your name, they still want to see that you can play the part.
Right. Well, so now let's talk about meeting distractions, and where I'm going with that is we've obviously been very forgiving during this time with kids being schooled at home, pets, etc. But to me, I think there comes a time where obviously we can't prevent everything, but an awareness that or maybe a standard set of how much effort that you're putting in to prevent those distractions, right? What are your thoughts there? And do we need to be more now intentional around the rules of meeting privacy, distraction-free type things?
So for about the first 6 months of COVID, everyone was just, we got a camera, we threw it on, and I'm just glad you're here today. And yes, I did your kid. And there were some YouTube videos of kids walking naked through the back of the camera and everything else happening. Bosses, CEOs, executives began to realize that's not cool. And so you do have to design this in a way of what's our standard, what's our expectation here, and what type of meeting is it? Again, I have some meetings it's almost like a beach party. We're casual, we're fun, tell them in advance what type of meeting it is. It's like going out to a dinner party. Is it tux and tails? Is it semi-casual? Is it sportswear? I think we need to think that way now because then you are still, the brand is important. You're also raising them up to say, you know what, you're still at work. You still need to have that level of expertise. And part of the way that comes through is partly our swagger and our design. Too many people have put their foot up on the desk virtually and in real person right now, and they're coasting because they think this is not powerful. And I hear it all the time. This is lazy. This is not good. I'll never connect with my client. What we found is connectivity has gone up when it's done right. So I do think you do need to have a discussion about what is your standard, whether it's the minimum or the highest level. You need to say, this meeting requires this of you, and this meeting requires this of you. And cameras on is a must for me. I tell everybody, if cameras are not on, you are not engaged. It's almost like you put the hand up. Everyone hates having the hand put in front of their face. It's really like you put the hand up and said, I'm not listening.
Okay. No, that's good. That's good advice. So now, I'd love to hear your thoughts on, is there untapped potential here that companies could be leveraging to really differentiate themselves and take, whether it's, does it result in more sales? Does it result in more efficiencies within the organization, saving them money? Like, what is the untapped potential and how do they leverage it?
Well, you just touched on one of the big ones is we are now saving money. Office space, office time, utilities, the commute back and forth. I get more time with my family. I can be online. 5 minutes, got my coffee, and I'm on camera. That's changed the game right there. And you are saving the corporate machine so much money right now. And that's why many have said, we've learned we can do this. Now we have to learn how to dial it up and do it more effective and more effective. So they're already saving money. I know of corporations that have literally sold buildings, and there's no cubicle to go back for. There's no main sales floor anymore. So that's a big savings. Yes, you can leverage this to have, for example, you and I are right now doing a webinar, an interview. You can tape content and send it out through your email. You can tape content, put it on your website. You could do things just like we're doing, interview another CEO, interview another high-level person, and put it on your website as bonus content to raise your clients, let them know, look, we're investing in you. Boy, they're going to love the content. They're getting something else. It's free. Or you can even do some of these for paid events, obviously, like a webinar, special event. And then you can get income through this virtual landscape. I tell people my catchphrase is the virtual stage is ever expanding. We have only touched the beginning of what this will be. If you come back with me in 6 months, we will have probably new technology, new ability to scale and grow financially through it because we will have to swipe a card on the screen. In fact, one of the new tools right now is, the QR codes were getting old and out of fashion for a very long time. QR codes now, if you put them on your virtual backdrop, they will scan through your phone and you can click, get a PDF, pay a bill through a QR code on your digital screen. The potential is unlimited.
Yeah, I love that idea. So what are some ways that you've seen organizations leverage the QR code?
Just take you right to a product landing page. Take you right to a question and answer to help them upskill and learn, to better register for that next event. I mean, for booking calls, I've been using Calendly. I drop that in every email link, every contact. What if your QR code was your Calendly? So it really becomes, this is now your digital business card. And so we started off back in the caveman days with a handshake. Then it was a paper business card. Then we were all excited in the 80s and 90s about, you must have a great website. This is now the new business card. So you must have this prepared to promote, to brand, to sell, to elevate your expertise as a thought leader. And if you do some of these things, like I said, this will help you in so many ways. You will get more hits, likes, shares, and even more revenue out of it.
Yeah. So I assume with all of this, then, you mentioned the QR code. So it made me think about overall equipment and technology and the ability, how that plays into the effectiveness of this. And one example I encountered was where some of the team is still in a conference room and then everybody else is online, and the conference room is not equipped with great audio. So, they can't hear you or you can't hear them. And so you become disengaged. So how important is all of the equipment, and where should people invest, and how do they be successful there?
So more and more of that's going to become a big question going forward. How much does a company invest in technology to keep the virtual engagement going? I'm going to expect most boardrooms or dream rooms, whiteboard rooms are all going to have a smart TV with a Logitech or some of our brand camera clipped on them. I cannot see that going the other way. Now those do have built-in microphones. It used to be you put the speakerphone in the middle of the desk and everyone can lean on in and talk to it. You're now going to have those group microphones that you'll have that plug in and go out to your system. And I've already seen it happen. I know of companies that have already created their own green room, so they can do their own green screen effect, mini TV studios to do all their updates and all their coaching and teaching through. So we are really becoming media. So to answer your question shortly, we are going to have to build our own mini studios. We are going to have to come up with a way to really learn the craft and the trade. I have studio lights. I have different microphones depending on the setting I'm using. Lapel mic, a studio broadcast mic, other things. More and more, you're going to have an IT person that understands video technology, not just computer technology, but you're going to have almost a videographer that helps you produce and create things.
What about for your individual like project teams and the people who are at home? What pieces are really critical, and should the company be investing in all of these things, or is it the individual, or what are your thoughts around that?
Actually, there's a couple of companies I know right now that have created landing pages, so a new hire comes on. In fact, here's an interesting one for Jana. I heard a gentleman earlier this year, a CEO moved from one company to another company. He was tasked with the idea of growing and scaling through the pandemic. He has hired new employees, and it dawned on him during the conversation, during the interview. He says, I've not met or shook their hands at all. And it blew his mind to think I've hired new people to scale my company that I've never really ever met. That's how much of a culture shock this is. So technology-wise, he's one of the people that said, we're going to put a landing page. When you hire somebody, go pick out your computer. Go pick out your microphone. These are the ones we recommend. Go pick out your lights if you want your ring light or whatever it is. And more companies will have to do that. So it does become a standard because you don't want one guy to have the right gear and literally the next cube looks bad. Lighting is important. You don't want to have that two-face going down the middle, the dark and the light, the shadow. It just freaks people out. Bad audio, bad video. I use different cameras depending on which type of a shoot I'm doing and how wide of a screen and things like that. People are buying inexpensive green screen right now. They clip on the back of the chairs and other things. The lime green is not the color you want. You want more of a forest green. I actually have a full stand-up studio from floor to ceiling that it's all forest green and it's fabric because the fabric also absorbs the light. It also cancels some of the audio and the voice, so it dampens it. So I sound much more better than just a flat surface.
Oh, that makes a lot of sense. Yeah, I've been thinking about investing in the green screen. I used to do a lot of TV production, and that used to be the only place you ever even saw a green screen. And now you can, now they're like shaped like the visors for your car or whatever, the sun shields for your car. So much more affordable than
you see the weatherman do it and pointing to Ohio's going to have rain today. We're all now living in that day and age where we're all doing it now.
Well, and I guess that leads to a question of how do you not get left behind? This is technology based, and so it does change rapidly. How do people not get left behind in this field?
I always coach people up front. You can buy all the technology, and people in the early pandemic bought more gear than they ever needed. Right now, they are over geared up, but they don't know how to run it. It bobbles their fingers both ways. So I tell people to dial it back. Work on you first. Your presentation, your personality, your rhythm on camera. People talk too fast. They're not clear. They're too far away from the mic. Record yourself. You are now an essential part of how you present. And that's why I coach presentation skills more than anything else. I will help with technology, but let's admit it. You can have all the bells and whistles and you can still stink on camera.
You're right. You can still be boring.
Yeah, you can still be boring. You can still turn off and say, nope, not watching anymore. So before you go buy all that stuff, work on you. Make that investment. Invest in your team. Have them get more confident because there are people that don't like the green light. They just don't want to see that thing you're on. How can you help them get more confident, more comfortable? Utilize them in the right way. Some people need to be on a lot. They want to be on. Others are like, give me 2 seconds. I'm on. I'm out. I'm done. That's where the personality, that's where the physical side comes in. And then you go figure out how many cameras do you want? How many cameras do you need? Lighting, things like that. But you don't have to blow the whole wad first. And too many people have done that too fast.
You were talking about working on yourself. And so, I know a lot of executives could probably leverage coaching like that, like you offer. What about the team members? What do you think about things like Toastmasters and things like that for just your base communication and base presentation skills?
Oh, yeah. Toastmasters is great for anyone that wants to learn how to speak publicly. Again, many of us who have been on stage, that's where a lot of people started off. I work with a lot of authors. They want the exact right, perfect word every time, Jana. Because they wrote it in the book, and it's got to be the right words. On stage, it's different every time. And so coaching them to relax and have fun, Toastmasters help you do that. People like me help you do that. Other organizations can help you. And there's a lot of them online now. There are also different podcast groups, community speech groups that have popped up that you can get on. And you can try. You can test it out. You can be on a virtual stage and just do it. It's you and a couple other people. So I would say take the practice, get the reps in. Like any coach will tell you, no matter if it's sports or business, whatever, the more reps you get, the better you will get.
That's one of my hangups is I like my written words so much better than my more extemporaneous words. So even after years of Toastmasters and becoming a distinguished Toastmaster, I still write out my speeches and then memorize them, even if they're an hour long. I can't seem to get away from that.
There are people like me then. Oh, this is another great trick for you. Use your laptop as a poster board. So some people are using teleprompters, but teleprompters many people just can't do because their head will do the back and forth. TV people learn and they learn and they learn that. What I do is I literally invest in post-it notes. I should buy stock in it by now, but I put it on my laptop in front of me sometimes when I'm doing presentations, especially newer ones, and I'll write down what my keywords are. The keywords are enough for me to know where I want to go. It keeps you camera centered. You can focus, you can smile, you can relax. The trick with that is number your post-it notes.
Yes. It's a very
I've done it without numbering. It's not a good thing.
Where's that card? Yeah, it's like it goes back to the old 3x5 cards. And if you get them out of order, oh, you're messed up.
Just don't cover up your camera when you do it, but in front of you on their screen, no one sees it, nobody knows. And it just adds that confidence. You don't have to shuffle paper, but that's part of that swagger and that confidence you get by doing little tricks like that.
No, that's great. So what 3 tips would you leave our audience with around thinking large scale corporations, what they need to do to be effective in this area or pay attention? What are your 3 key takeaways?
So one of them is your environment. We haven't even talked about the environment, but once you get on camera, your visual setting, whether it's green screen or whether it's a physical setting, it communicates who you are, what you do. If you're in the author space, you're going to have books behind you. You're going to have a bookshelf behind you. It speaks, I'm an author. As an executive, you might be in that boardroom. You might be at an office desk. You might have the window off to the side. Your environment communicates. 70% of what we understand and receive is nonverbal physicality. So when you do this, you need to figure out, what am I communicating around me as well as I'm communicating with my mouth? So that'd be number 1. Figure out your environment.
What am I communicating? Just pause there. What am I?
You are outdoors. You are fun. You are active because you clearly like either hike or fish or something, but the trees, the water, you're definitely adventuresome. Now, is that true?
It's travel. Yeah. My husband and I, when we were dating, now we're in the pandemic, but we used to travel all around the world. So there are pictures I've taken from our travels.
The other thing would be energy. You need, this takes more. I have been on stage. This takes more out of you than it does being live on stage. You feed off the crowd. You know when they're laughing. You know when they're in.
Yes.
You have to be up to keep people up. I've done this for several hours at a time, and people are like, oh my gosh, you have got to be wiped, because you have to give them what they're craving. So again, if you're doing that executive briefing, if you're doing a team leading thing, you cannot just turn off. You have to actually turn on and dial it up a little bit because you are on TV. Every TV show we watch, everything that you engage with, people are used to saying that first action scene, that first car blows up. We are now competing with that. Whether you want to believe it or not, we are competing with that because your mind tells you, I'm watching a TV screen. So how can you use that energy to your advantage? Now, there's good energy and bad energy, and I can talk on that another time. But you don't want to be that blowing blimp thing at the used car factory. Okay, we'll just say that. And then really, the other thing is save the education aspect for last.
Okay.
Too many of us are launching off with, here's the important element, here's the educational nugget, and we launch up the highest level of what we want them to get. They're not ready for it. They're not ready for, here's the high piece. You need to have the energy, the environment, the engagement. You need to have the entertainment value. All these different things go into it. And then they're ready to receive it because they've had a laugh. They're relaxed with you. They're already into the story. They're already into where you're trying to lead them to. One of my favorite people that could do this was Walt Disney. Walt Disney would want to tell you on The Wonderful World of Disney, when I was a little kid, he would take about 15 minutes behind his desk, walk around, pull out a toy, pull out a model. He would have a map on the wall. He was always dreaming of the vision for Disney. And he would tell you things, story, and then he would say, and then this. And it was like a selling pitch. Come to Disney. Come to my next amusement park. The hook was at the end. And then his final hook was, and now the main feature. So he set you up with all this cool excitement. He made his big pitch, and then he let you go have some fun. Put the education at the end. Don't launch off right away and blow your people away. They're just not ready for it.
That's great advice. You've given me a lot to think about. So if our listeners want to connect with you, Rich, how do they do it?
That's Rich at richbontrager.net. Also, How to Rock the Virtual Stage is now streaming on Roku TV. Rock the Stage on Roku. Would happy to have you check that out and support that. But the easiest way is just by email or find me on LinkedIn, Rich Trigger Bontrager.
Well, it's been great having you. Thanks so much. And thank you all for listening. And until next time, have a great day.